Cinema Worms.
Discussing everything from Grima Wormtongue to the Shy Halib.
I'm Sabib.
And I'm Linz.
And this is Cinema Worms Podcast. Every frame of James Cameron's Avatar, 1/24th of a second, took an average of 47 hours to render. So, I'm going to be talking about Warfare, which is the latest film from Alex Garland, but also co-written and directed with a Navy SEAL veteran, Ray Mendoza. So this is based on a true story and Ray Mendoza's experiences in the Iraq War around 2006. So the film follows a team of Navy SEALs who are, my understanding is that's Baghdad, who are in this neighborhood. We're sort of dropped into the middle of things in a neighborhood in Baghdad. And they are there to sort of scout the area and provide support to some U.S. Marines who are also in the area. So we start off pretty slow. We kind of see, but tense, right? There's an underlying sense of dread. We see these guys kind of like picking a house in the dark and be like, I like this house. This is where we're going to stake out. Some families live there, but, you know, they'll push them aside into some other rooms.
Wow.
And they're sort of just scoping out the neighborhood during the day, seeing the movements of people, and you don't know what's really going on. Like, are they just like following like random people walking on the street, sort of thinking that they might be dangerous? And then slowly you see the people are clearing out. Men are gathering into the building, and there's a call over a loudspeaker for people to come and kill Americans, which they find out through their translator. And at that point in the film, that's where things kick off. And we have a fight for survival that is one of the most tense films I've ever seen. And just to talk about the cast, you have the absolute pick of great young actors that are working in film and TV today. So it was wild, like I do every single one of them. So DeFaro Wunatai, who's in Reservoir Dogs, Will Poulter, Cosmo Jarvis, Kit Connor from Heartstopper, Finn Bennett, Joseph Quinn, Charles Melton, Michael Gandolfini.
Oh my god, this is an insane list.
I didn't quite notice Noah Centino was in it, but
okay.
He was also in it.
And
then some other guys I recognized as well.
If you had told me to guess who, I would not have guessed that Kit Connor and who and Charles Melton from May December, right?
Yeah,
would have been in the same war film together,
and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but the first scene is darkly hilarious. I don't want to give it away for those who might go see it. Let's just say it begins with a couple minutes of something that is just absolutely hilarious and jarringly funny. And then we go into war.
Okay. So it's worth saying here that I did not see this film, which is a complete aberration on my part, and I should really fix that. But I was working on something else, and I didn't go and see this film with you because I didn't have time. So can you tell me a bit more of what did you enjoy? It sounds like you enjoyed it, did you?
Yeah, I loved it.
Mm-hmm. You said it was really tense.
I mean, I'm still sort of reeling because I came out of the film like 45 minutes ago, and I'm still sort of processing it. It's, in our sort of fractured age, it's hard to be fully immersed in media. I was only thinking about this film while I was watching it, completely engrossed. It's a really marvelous piece of filmmaking. We both enjoyed Civil War, but I mean, it's quite different, even though they're both
Enjoy is
about war.
a strong word for what I felt about Civil War.
I have complex feelings about Civil War. Which we'll talk about it. Can we talk about that on another podcast? Because that film is so problematically enjoyable. But
again, not the way I would have phrased it. I felt very stressed during Civil War.
Well, I was stressed during this.
It was, but like in a different kind of realistic, like this is horrendous kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, this was even more realistic because it's based on real life events. It's basically like with the guidance of Ray Mendoza, based on the testimony and memories of those who lived through it.
Okay.
So the depiction of the Navy SEAL team, it just feels very visceral and also importantly unglamorized, right? Even though there's a sense of like dread and anticipation throughout, you have this feeling of it being a real honest depiction of how something like this would go down. There's kind of boredom and almost lounging around in the beginning, right? As they stake things out, they don't know what's coming. And then when you break into violence, it's terrifying. And it's just about survival. So I think what's interesting about it is, well, first of all, just the filmmaking in terms of sound, the way they use sound,
Okay.
going in and out of sound. When various like IEDs or gunshot is happening, it's like pounding through your body, and then it's you have this like seasick, muted sort of stretches of scenes when someone's basically gotten a brain trauma from something like a IUD or a grenade, and you feel like you're there with them, and it's very disorienting.
Wow.
And terrifying. And I mean, what obviously when you have a movie about something like the Iraq War, like this sort of a moral action taken by the United States that ended in the deaths of, I think, like 1 million Iraqis and also like so many young American men. I don't think the film tries to moralize, but I don't think it's apolitical or amoral. I think in the intense realism, you see that like it becomes futile. It's futile. Like there's not like patriotism. It's just like you're trying to survive and you're just trying to protect those that are with you. So the only nobility can be found in like helping those around you survive, even though you're terrified. And I think that there's a willingness to show that it affected actual human people that weren't just the Americans there, like the family that is just has their home completely destroyed and is shoved into a room. I love that they were, sort of occasionally went back to them and are repeatedly showing their horror at what's happening. And it's just like so tight. It's so well choreographed. And you don't like get to know, quote unquote, the characters through tons of conversation and huge histrionic emotions. It just felt like you were watching real people. And I think you see who they are through those actions. So I think it's that you can be frustrated by that, being like, oh, well, I didn't get a sense of the morality of this or the characters or etc. I felt like I enjoyed the way it was sparsely told.
Okay. So, cinematically, is there anything you would compare it to, whether contemporary or slightly older films? What have you seen that you would say like it's similar to those?
That's hard to say. I mean, I'm like
I
immediately.
mean, you mentioned Civil War earlier, but I was thinking,
I think like that. It does remind me of Civil War, just in terms of probably like, and this could be totally wrong, like in terms of the combat scenes, which in a way feel almost. There is something almost absurd about Civil War in that it's like this made up war that didn't actually happen. This is a war that did happen. And I know that's like called fiction, but it was in a sort of problematic way where it's cosplaying at the horrors of war. But this, it does feel like those scenes in Civil War were very similar, except this was like the whole movie and very like grounded and lived in. So yeah, I would say it's very crisp.
Remember we saw Lee as well. That had some really interesting scenes in wartime when she's running around, like and is very stunned by like what you said earlier about the mutedness of the noise, like the sound kind of coming in and out of the scene as like the blasts are happening when she's in an active war zone.
Yeah, and there's a mini series. I've not actually seen Band of Brothers, but I have seen The Pacific. I loved it. I love well-made war stories because it's you see the most visceral aspects of like human survival and like the horror of violence. So I say this is one of like the great war movies because it is just that well made. So yeah, it reminds me of something like The Pacific and then other like well-made movies about the Iraq War. So now we're going to be discussing the much talked about latest release from writer-director Ryan Coogler, Sinners. We were excited to see this film.
Hell yeah.
Lots of people, are showing up to watch it. So this is a supernatural thriller, and it is set in Jim Crow era, the South, Mississippi. And basically we're following these two twins played by Michael B. Jordan. He plays both of them, returning to their hometown to start sort of juke joint, and they're getting back in touch with people in the town, driving around in their fancy car, showing off their gangster money, basically.
Their tasty threads. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Driving around these like dirt roads past the cotton fields, meeting up with their young cousin, who's a very talented musician and real life musician, Miles Catton, in his first like major role. And basically the whole beginning of the film is steeping us in this local Black community as these two brothers are hustling to try to start up this juke joint and get all the musicians arranged and get their smuggled Prohibition era alcohol into the place.
And corn liquor.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than corn liquor. It's Irish beer. Many Irish things in this film. As we progress through this film about the South, music in this era, and preparing this great opening night, there's this supernatural threat that sort of comes up and emerges in full force and makes for a thrilling, suspenseful, and terrifying, and actually the cast, amazing. Mm-hmm. So we have Michael B. Jordan, and like I said, Miles Canton making his debut. Haley Steinfeld as... So the two twin brothers both have these like former lovers. One is Haley Steinfeld, the other is played by Wunmi Mosaku. And we have Jack O'Connell, who I didn't know was in the film. Delroy Lindo, amazing. He was like one of my favorites in this film. Saul Williams, who's actually this famous musician, played the father, the preacher father. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, so just chock full of talented musicians and actors.
So... firstly, I want to say that I read that Ryan Coogler and his wife, they've been together a really long time, and this is maybe one of the most romantic things that I've ever heard the partner of a writer doing for a writer. Apparently, when they first got together and they were dating, he couldn't afford writing software, and so she bought it for him, even though it was like $300. Because she believed in him that much, and I just think that is the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
And they produced this film together.
Yeah, which is just
real partners.
Like, oh my gosh, the romance in it. Now, I love this particular setup in a film. This is one of my favorite kinds of setup. People turning up for an amazing party, and the night building into this incredible visual and audio event. It's just a maelstrom of imagery and emotion and history, but it's underlaid with this beautiful, thrumming menace. And you know that this happiness and delirium that you're seeing cannot last forever, so you focus on it even more intensely while you do. And my God, when things kick off, oh, how they kick off. And I agree, like, everyone was absolutely incredible. A really nice shout out to Jack O'Connell, who I feel like occupies a certain... I have seen him play a lot of different characters, but there's something just really menacing about Jack O'Connell. I'm sure he's a very nice man, but there's something really menacing about him here that just works so well as a kind of antagonist. Now, the trailer was cut really carefully so that it didn't spoiler anything, and even though we saw this film a week after release, we were able to still go in mostly blind, and we don't want to spoiler things here for you, which does make it a little hard to talk about some things. My God, I had a huge grin on my face the whole time. What a banger of a film. What a belter.
There's so much about this film that works and makes it like vibrantly original. You have the sense of place and the musical atmosphere that it's steeped in. And as I was reading up more on the score that, Ryan Coogler and the famous Ludwig Göransson collaborated on, they put so much just even into the soundtrack, researching blues music, living in the area, working with lots of famous musicians to create the soundtrack, training with the actors so they would sing live on set. You really do get a sonic history. Mm-hmm. And power that is one of the great strengths of the film. Also visually, it's stunning.
God, it's gorgeous, yeah.
70 millimeter film with IMAX cameras and just rich colors. The historical detail is impeccable. The performances from everyone are amazing. Like, everyone has their own kind of charisma they bring, from Michael B. Jordan It's even Haley Steinfeld.
I like her. Don't diss Haley Steinfeld.
No, I said even her. When
she's
I
great.
say things like this, you think I'm insulting them. I am delighted at her performance.
I need our podcast listeners to know how obsessed I am by Pitch Perfect 1 and 2. There was never a third, only Pitch Perfect 1 and 2, and Haley Steinfeld is a delight in Pitch Perfect 2.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan is just absolutely brilliant in this
he's
film.
fantastic.
He just brings this like energy and pathos and strength that I was really, really impressed with him in this film.
Do you know what? Even though he's playing like identical twins, I really was having trouble remembering that they were both Michael B. Jordan because he played them like such different people, even though they're obviously brothers and they're very tight and they are similar, but I couldn't help seeing them as different people. It was just a magnificent performance.
Oh yeah. And then Delroy Lindo, very good and surprisingly funny in this film. And of course we don't want to forget Wonmi Mosaku, although I was not as convinced by her accent, I'm so sorry, as the others. But the accents were crazy and they were great. They were like, whoa, so Louisiana.
It was just...
Or sorry, Mississippi.
Yeah. I feel like, you're the American here. Don't you know these states?
No, I don't.
I don't know where they are. So, incredible film, dripping with sensuality, a heartbeat so deep, you're going to feel it right down to the soles of your feet while you're watching this. You cannot sit still in your seat while you watch this film. You will be shifting, you will be tapping, you will be nodding your head. No, we didn't talk about this on the way home. I think I shushed you. Sorry.
Because I want to save everything for the pod.
Exactly.
Save
it for the pod, for the fans.
Bring it to the pod.
You did say that you had some things that you were not sure about, and I told you that I was going to guess. So I've written down some guesses here, and you can tell me whether I'm right. We have a very small bet going on behind the scenes. I'm not convinced now that I'm going to get it, but I have 3 guesses about what you might not have enjoyed about this film completely. So 1, I guessed that you were taken out of the moment by the brief inclusion of dancers from contemporary times.
Actually.
Oh, see, I
like that.
I knew I was going to be wrong about some of these.
I'll try to be concise. This film is very daring in that it'll break convention and it will be daringly like even bizarre and imaginative, and I think that works. I do think that these things you can lean into, but not so hard that you indulge. So I very much, this is like a slight spoiler, but like that this idea of like you're bringing in history and like the spirits of ancestors playing future and past ancestors playing different music. I found that very powerful. That part did, I think, also go on too long, which is my
That was one of my favorite bits. It was...
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. But for me, I don't want to spoil your other guesses, so I'll get to my main critique of the film.
So that was the one I was not 100% sure about, but just based on what I know of you, I was wondering if you thought that was breaking the immersion a little bit. I suspect that you were mad that certain characters did not survive, which is usually the case in these films, and you usually get mad if you really like somebody and they don't survive.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I figured everyone was going to die.
I mean...
But I'm sorry, not everyone dies. I'm saying that's my guess.
Yeah.
Right? That, like, it's going to be a fight to the death. So then who ended up dying didn't really matter as much to me because I was like, this seems like... And then you will see when you watch it who lives and survives.
Okay, and my final one, I'm 0 for 2 here. I hope I'm not 0 for 3. Now, I don't want to use the supernatural word because we don't want to spoiler anyone who hasn't seen this film. I wondered if you didn't like that it was specifically this supernatural thing rather than a more vague description, because Annie, who is the former lover of one of the twins, who is kind of like a witch woman, she talks about like, demons being like hates. But then at one point she gets a lot more specific. And I was wondering how you feel about that.
That the supernatural entities are what they are?
Yes.
This entity can be revisited again and again and still be enjoyable in film.
It can. But I was wondering, because we've seen it so much, using that specific word to describe these things.
Actually, I didn't think about that. But now that you bring it up, like, I would have loved for it to be more vague. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it when it was vague up until the point I thought, oh, they're not going to use the word, and I actually kind of like that. And then she used the word, and I was a teeny bit disappointed. But it was literally one single splash in an otherwise absolutely incredible ocean of joy.
Yeah, it's such a fun, vibrant, like alive, like audacious film. Really, the issues for me are, and this is, feel free to disagree. Please comment when we post this on social media.
Start a war.
Start a war. Is that it's really an issue for me of like pacing and editing. To me, the way things are paced and things are revealed and progress created a bit of collapsing of suspense and tension that could have absolutely been there.
I know the exact moment you're talking about as well, because I remember thinking, oh, I wish you hadn't done that for another 5-10 minutes.
Why not let it build? They really take their time in the beginning of the film. And I understand that's to like have us emotionally invested. Fine, take your time, but then you need to make the film longer, because when you have action beginning to play itself out and stakes beginning to just like go crazy, violence happening, if that's rushed, then I just feel like I'm being sort of rolled along. That really sort of takes me out of the suspense of the film. And that was really the biggest issue for me. I think it's so imaginative and inventive and profound in terms of the cultural history, the exploration of like the depth of Black culture, that I can like look past that, but it makes it disappointing for me in that, at least in the issue of pacing and editing.
And I think that's, if I was to agree with any one of these things, it would be that I just wanted, there's a specific moment and I thought, oh, I wish you hadn't done that right now. But that was just because I'm selfish and I wanted more of what was delicious and already on my plate.
Yeah, make it freaking 3 hours. I don't know how long it was. It didn't feel long.
I mean, for a guy, he made this film, I think it was like made for like 90 million or something. He's already spent a lot of time and energy on it. Like, let him live. But you know, Ryan Coogler.
Indeed.
Ryan Coogler,
I'm being an asshole.
You just cooked a feast so delicious that we wanted to savor it even more the whole time. And that's not a bad thing. If you haven't seen Sinners, oh my god, go and see it. Like, please support Black filmmakers, support diverse filmmakers, but also treat yourselves, because it's an absolute joy.